Welcome to Transcendent. I'm Raya, and I'm the daughter.
And I'm Joe, and I'm the dad.
Normally, we open our podcast with a dad joke, but this week we have a guest, and we figured we would let you share the dad joke.
Yes. What do you call an alligator in a vest?
I don't know. What do you call an alligator in a vest?
An investigator.
Well, we are here with my friend Eos, who heads a local transgender group called TransFam, sort of a support group for those of us that need to get together. I've actually only been able to be there once because you all meet the same time as we record our podcast. But it's a great time for local transgender people to get together and support one another. Eos's pronouns are he, they, and has become a good friend through this. So I'm really grateful to have you here. So welcome.
Yeah, of course. Thank you both for inviting me.
Yes. So I would like to start first with just asking you about your pronouns. Oftentimes I find with non-binary people, when you're giving multiple pronouns, people can sort of wonder, well, how does that work or what do I do? Could you explain how your pronouns work? What are your pronouns for you and what do you prefer?
Right. So whenever I tell someone that I am he, they, I prefer both pronouns. You can refer me as he, him, and you can also refer me as they, them. It doesn't mean that I want to hear just one or the other. I would like to hear a mix. You know, if you're speaking about me or talking about me, you can refer me as like, oh yeah, they did this today and he did such a good job. So it's just kind of like a flow. And it doesn't have to be all the time. Sometimes some people like strictly stick with, yeah, they did this, they did amazing. Or like, you know, he did this today, he looked great. It's a mixture of the two in a description of myself.
I always wonder with folks that give to if that is kind of the standard of what most people prefer that have to, or oftentimes it seems like, well, pick whichever one works best for you. I know some folks, especially if they're using it as a stepping stone as they're figuring out their, you know, kind of more permanent identity, they're like, well, I'm kind of playing around with these two and I'm not sure which one fits quite yet. Mm-hmm. And what would you recommend for somebody that wants to be supportive, wants to use the right pronouns, but is not sure when somebody gives a set of pronouns like that, how to respond? Should you ask? Like, do you prefer that I use both? Mm-hmm. Do you prefer that I pick one? Do you have a recommendation for something like that?
Definitely asking is important. I know that in my own preference, I would rather someone ask me what I would like to be referred as than to just not ask and then say the wrong thing. And I guess I always like to let people know that for non-binary people, at least, don't think of them as strictly one thing or the other. They are them. They are who they are. When it comes to their pronouns, sometimes mixing it up depending on the way that they feel that day. Or, you know, you could ask, hey, how are you feeling? Are you feeling a little more he or are you feeling a little more they? Like, that's perfect. Asking someone how they would like to be perceived.
Would you talk a little bit about non-binary in general? I feel like a lot of people are in our audience may hear that term. They might have heard it used, maybe on this podcast. We may have mentioned it at some time, or have heard it in other places, but are kind of wondering, well, what is that? I don't understand. Mm-hmm. And especially, there are still many people that listen to this podcast that will hear they as pronouns and think, well, do you mean plural? Are you a multiplicity of people? Would you talk about how non-binary works and how they, them pronouns work?
I always think that it does depend on the person. What non-binary means to me is that I do not like to be perceived as, I don't like to have a label on who I am and what I am. I am not a woman. I am not a man. I'm a human being. I am my own person. I don't look at myself and see that is a woman. I don't look at myself and see that's a man. Who I am is a feeling. I like to think that Sometimes I feel like representing more feminine. Sometimes I feel like representing more masculine. Sometimes I feel like being neither. And I think for a lot of non-binary people, that is how it feels at times. But it doesn't mean that a non-binary person needs to be androgynous all the time. You know, it fluctuates. It can be a tier of a lot of different kinds of identities, I guess I should say. Because like non-binary to me is a base. That is who I am. But I like to add on like, oh, you know, I would say I'm a little more transmasculine, which being non-binary and then having another label on top of that can sometimes be a little nerve-wracking in a way, because I still don't want to be perceived as a man, but I like to be perceived as masculine.
Prior to beginning this podcast, you mentioned that you never had feelings as a girl, truly, even when you were really young.
I grew up with a strict Mexican mother, and I was always been told, oh, you're a lady, you know, you need to do lady things. You need to wear skirts, you need to wear pigtails, you need to, you know, be in the kitchen, be inside, learn how to sew, learn how to cook, clean. If I had to put a label as a little girl, you know, I was a tomboy. I preferred wearing pants. I like always wanted my hair up in a bun. If anything, I kind of wanted it short. I wanted to be out playing with my brother, my younger brother, the neighborhood kids. I wanted to play video games with my brother when I was really young. And then I just got pulled away from a lot of the things that I enjoyed doing, which there was always a line of, well, that's boy things and this is girl things, and you're a girl, so you need to do girl things.
Were there any other experiences that you remember that really stand out to you?
I think I did have a phase where I wanted to be an alien. I didn't want to be human because I felt like that's all human was growing up, was you're either a boy or you're either a girl. And I just didn't know what it was when I was young, but I do know that I just didn't want to be what I grew up, you know, humans were supposed to be.
What I'm hearing from you is that it's going well beyond just being a tomboy.
Yes.
Because I feel like some people might hear you say that and say, well, you just like some masculine things. That doesn't make you not a girl.
Oh,
But
absolutely
what
not.
I'm hearing from you is that it's a lot deeper than that. It's not just things you like or you don't like. You were actually like repulsed by the idea of having to be either a boy or a girl.
Yes, absolutely. I just did not. Every time I would see myself in the mirror, I was a child. I didn't understand it, but I didn't see a girl or a boy. I just saw myself. I saw who I wanted to be. And
how young were you when you first realized that?
so I, again, didn't know what non-binary was, but I want to say that I had to be as early as maybe 4th or 5th grade when I knew that I felt different.
Sure.
I thought it was my sexuality, but it was obviously deeper than just my sexuality.
So how did that process unfold to you?
I guess the way that those feelings unfolded was the pressure of being looked at as a woman. And I've always felt like I've had a natural sense of like, I could be something else than just a girl.
Did you have any problems with that in school?
Yes. So in school, I got called a she-man once. When I was young, I thought that they were calling me He-Man, like the cartoon. Because, again, I was, as a child at least, a tomboy. So there was a lot of girls who would make fun of me for going into the girls' restroom because they're just like, if you're wearing pants and you're always dirty hanging out with the boys, you need to go to the boys' room. And of course, like I wasn't allowed in the boys' room. So there was a lot of really small moments like that it was really hard for me to know and accept how I was feeling during that time as a child. Of course, there were all new feelings. So,
when did you discover that there was anyone else out there that was not who everyone thought they were? Did you find anybody who was somewhat different?
Yeah, absolutely. So in high school is when I met my first trans person. I actually spoke with her and she gave me permission to speak about her on this podcast. She was the first person that I had ever had an experience with that she was upfront about, hey, I'm transgender. I know that some people knew me as this, but this is my name now. It took me a bit of time to get used to calling her pronouns, mostly because of the people around, because teachers, other students would call her that. I would ask her questions for a while because of the influence of my mother. Like, I was like, is it a mental illness?
Sure.
Is it like, did you suffer any trauma or anything? And like, she told me about her life, but her being who she wasn't because of any other reason than because that's who she is. She answered a lot of questions that I had been questioning my entire life. And of course, like when I was young in the media, I would see drag queens depicted or like cross-dressers or, even some transgender people. But of course, growing up and seeing the way that they used to be portrayed in the media when I was young, it was such a like taboo thing. So meeting her kind of opened my eyes. I actually still talk to her and thank her a lot. She definitely pushed me to realize who I was.
So I understand from the way you're describing it that your mother was never accepting.
More ignorant than anything. She just chooses not to acknowledge me and who I am when it comes to these things in her words.
I think we have a lot of parents that are listening right now that want to be affirming, want to not be ignorant, but are not sure what to do. And that's part of the reason why they're coming here. If you could give them advice so that they can, for their own child, be the kind of parent that you wish that you had right now, what kind of advice would you give?
Even if you don't understand, doesn't mean that your child isn't transgender. Ignoring, for example, pronouns, if you say that you accept your child, but you are only referring to them by their name instead of using the pronouns, like that isn't helpful, because yes, you might accept them. Yes, you might be okay with them being transgender and you are using their preferred name, but trying to brush over the fact that they use certain pronouns by using their name in replacement of those pronouns, it kind of seems very ignorant to a lot of kids. It seems like you don't really care about who they are, that you're just slapping a Band-Aid over it and calling it, that's fine,
It's like a reminder every time they do it, when it's obvious that they would have used a pronoun but are not using a pronoun. It's like a reminder
Yes.
that they're not really accepting you.
Yes. It's important for people to understand, and sure, they'll make mistakes, but in my experience, at least, people will appreciate you making the mistake and then being corrected or correcting yourself than pretending it doesn't exist, than just washing over it and then, So,
because they want it to be what they think it should be.
Yes. They think that, I'll just take the easier route. Well, your transgender kid didn't go through the easier route. And I don't have kids, so I don't know what it's like to have to deal with that. But I am a kid, and I know how it feels on the other side. My mom, in Mexico, there was a non-binary politician, which unfortunately passed away. But even then, my mother just still didn't understand.
I think the thing that they mostly don't understand is that it's not a choice. That's the problem. And I equate that to being left-handed. I am left-handed. That doesn't make me wrong. That doesn't make me different. It wasn't a choice. I am left-handed. I could force myself to use my right hand in a lot of things, but it would be uncomfortable. It would not be me.
Right.
And I think it's very similar. It's not a choice. And when they learn that and they understand it, they become more accepting to the point where eventually they become affirming.
Yes.
I think in a sense too, I think a lot of parents don't want to go through the difficult struggle, but you have to go through the difficult struggle because just like you didn't ask to have to go through this difficult struggle, it was thrust upon you by virtue of being who you are.
Yeah.
A parent might want to try to brush it under the rug or let it go, but just like you couldn't let it go, they can't let it go either. And it's really critical that we all together wrestle with what's going on. Otherwise, it's not really love. It's wanting to look like love, but it doesn't really act that way in practice.
I'm Monica Scarbin. I love listening to the Transcendent podcasts, probably because I've been a guest speaker. I've been listening to these podcasts for over 2 years now and have found them to be not only inspirational, but very informative and emotionally lifting to my spirits, especially when I'm not feeling very hot. I'm a supporter, and I'm glad to be a supporter. Please go to transcendent.com, click on support. By as little as $3 a month, you can cancel at any time.
Are there others in your family that are not accepting?
So a lot of my mother's side, I don't really speak with, mostly because of other personal reasons. I haven't really spoken to them about who I am. My brother also doesn't understand it. I mean, I could try and explain it to him and he could try to listen, but he, being the person that he is, he probably won't still understand it. I do have family up here who also doesn't understand it, but they do try. They do try their best to, make me feel accepted with the little knowledge that they have.
Have you noticed any movement toward acceptance, even a little bit?
From my mother, I think maybe, mostly because a lot of the things that she did that happened when I was a child have made our connection more strained.
Sure.
As now that I'm an adult. So I think to keep me around, she still doesn't ask questions or she won't acknowledge it, but she'll every once in a while will tell me, I don't care who you are, I don't care what you are, you're still my kid, my daughter, and I love you. After everything, that's pretty good. And I know it could be better, and I'm not saying settle, no, but I think that if she really did want to learn, it could happen.
Of course.
And I feel like this is a common story that I hear over and over again about a parent wanting to continue to be loving, but really not wanting to do the hard work that it takes to understand and to really be fully accepting and affirming and those kinds of things. And that's what we hope to do, is to move people much more in that direction.
Yeah.
Now, I'm curious for you, would you talk a little bit about your gender expression?
Yeah.
And how you carry yourself in the world. If I may I describe your physical?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so Eos is wearing today amazing makeup. Every time I see you, I'm always kind of jealous. I do my best for myself to just fit in. And in a more rural area, that means that I rarely wear makeup because for me, it calls more of attention to myself. And I know I can fly under the radar more if I don't. So if I wear a full face of makeup, it's a pretty big deal. Every time I see you, you have the amazing cat eye. You have, great eye makeup. You really do a lot.
Yeah.
Now, some people may see that and think, well, that looks very feminine. Talk a little bit about how gender expression feels for you and how you prefer to carry yourself in the world.
Yeah. So I might have mentioned this earlier, but I know that I don't owe anyone androgyny. I don't owe anyone masculinity, and I don't really owe anyone femininity. And it also comes with the argument of like how gender is perceived with products. Like there are plenty of men who are cis men who like to wear makeup, or some more non-binary people that like to do like basically art on their face. I learned to do makeup at a very young age. It became a hobby for me. And so it kind of still is. And I think that even though I go by he, they pronouns, my love for that hobby still hasn't changed. I still love doing makeup. I still love glamming myself up, and I will do it in different ways. There are some times where if I really wanted to, I could just do the guy liner kind of thing, you know? Most days, no makeup, you know, because and I think I feel like I want to make myself look more like a fairy, if anything, you know, like a mystical fairy with like the natural like makeup, or, you know, like not natural makeup, but like for a fairy, it would be a natural makeup or whatever, you know? So I guess it's just more of like a hobby, an art piece, you know, for me. I may like to be perceived as masculine, but I think that some makeup can be perceived as masculine.
Sure. So it sounds to me like what I'm hearing over and over again from you is don't tell me what I can't do.
Yeah.
Don't tell me that because of who I am and my gender that anything is off limits to me.
Exactly.
I want to do whatever anybody is doing that I think looks fun.
Mm-hmm. I am a being. I exist, and therefore I will exist no matter what other people tell me.
That makes sense. Sometimes I think we think of gender as a spectrum between feminine and masculine, but I think that that's misguided. I think it's not just one single line, but imagine like we're back in high school geometry where you've got the Cartesian coordinates, you've got the X coordinate and the Y coordinate, and one is how feminine or not feminine you are, the other is how masculine or not masculine you are. And the two don't necessarily relate at all. You can be high masculine and high feminine. You can be low masculine and low feminine. You can be high of one and low the other, or low and high. You can have all kinds of mixtures. And that, to me, is a really good thing, especially in a society that tells us you have to behave a certain way. Seeing you being your most authentic self is, I think, a wonderful reminder that we don't have to follow these rules.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what I tell people in trans fam as well.
I imagine you probably do have people that make assumptions about you based on how you present all the time. How do you feel about that, and how do you navigate that?
So I am the type of person, and I know that it's different for everyone as well, but I'm the type of person that if I don't know you personally, I don't care what you think of me. So if I go, for example, I go to work and I am perceived as a woman, they call me she, her, that's fine. You know, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't hurt me. I do think that sometimes though, when I get called a lady, that kind of does something to me, but I don't feel too deep about it. Whereas if I talk to my people, my friends, or the people that I want to keep close to me, and either they misgender me, that's when it kind of hurts a little bit more. I know that they don't mean it in a malicious way or anything like that. And if it is in a malicious way, then that's when I will stand up for myself. It kind of goes with people that I don't know. So long as they're not doing it in a malicious way, so long as the people from work, if they knew that I was non-binary and then like they still were trying to poke at me, then I would stand up for myself.
For you personally, then, what's the difference between gender expression and gender identity?
Gender identity is who I am, the person that one chooses to be. Gender expression is more of like, at least to me, it's more of a perception. The way that I express myself doesn't have a gender. I don't pin one or the other. You know, I don't say, oh, I'm going to dress this way so that I look this way. I just dress the way that I feel, the way that I want to. So it's hard for me to answer that because gender expression to me is just however I want to express myself, you know, physically or in a personality kind of way, you know?
Well, there is no correct answer.
Yeah.
Everyone is different. We always say, if you know one LGBTQ person, you know one LGBTQ person.
Yeah.
No two people are alike any way or form.
What do you wish that people understood about non-binary identities?
I wish that they would understand that being non-binary, while it is who I am, it isn't all what I am. You know, I'm not, oh, there goes Eos, the non-binary person. You know what I mean? Like I'm Eos, yes, but I also like to write. I also like to go to trans fam. I like to do other things, you know. I want to be perceived as just Eos. Like I don't want people to be like, oh yeah, that's just like the non-binary person that lives across the street. Non-binary isn't just who I am. There are so many more things that I am. I am Mexican American. I am a survivor of many things. I'm way more than just being non-binary.
I think for our cisgender listeners in the audience, you can imagine how it would feel like if the most important thing about you was that you're a man or that you're a woman. That doesn't feel right. You wouldn't think of yourself, like Dad, you wouldn't think of yourself as the number one thing that describes you is that you're a man. You probably think of yourself as you're a former business owner, a former runner, you played in a band, and all of the things that you've done. To limit it to just one identity as the most important thing about you can feel very limiting.
The only thing that I feel really sorry about is that you said former runner.
I'm sorry, but you are an avid walker at this
Yes,
point.
I am an avid walker. I thought when you get to be 80, it's okay to walk.
Oh yeah.
Eos, what advice would you have for young people that are trying to navigate their own identities right now, especially if they're struggling? What have you learned in your journey?
You don't have to put a label on it. Just because, you know, your friends have found who they are and want to put a label on it doesn't mean that you're still finding yourself. I think that is very important. There are some people who don't even identify as non-binary. You know, they're not a woman, they're not a man, but they don't want to be identified as anything. They are just them. And I think that's a little bit about me in a way. I do identify as non-binary, yes. But I also just advise others that it really just isn't important. Be who you want to be. Labels can wait. Just find yourself and find what makes you happy.
So almost what I'm hearing from you is that labels are tools, and if the tool helps you,
yes,
great, use it. And if the tool is not helpful, then don't be constrained by it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't feel rushed that you need to be something. You need to be non-binary. You need to be a trans man or a trans woman. Like, you can be you.
What gives you hope about the future?
The new generation being a lot more queer, more accepting. I'm very hopeful that the new generation will be more themselves than being like held back by the modern labels. So yeah, I think it's really nice that the new generation is being more free with who they are and their expression in the world. I didn't learn that I was non-binary. I didn't label it until I was 21. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people that I've met, they knew since they were young. They were like teenagers. They had started with parents' permission, you know, their transition very early. But I also have met people who started their transition at like 40 years old, 50 years old. And
that was me.
Yeah, there we go.
I
so
understand.
I think I didn't start till I was 21. And I know that that's still pretty young, but it'll take as much time as it needs to.
That's a great advice. I feel like every single trans person I know always feels like, I wish I would have done this earlier.
Yes.
And yeah, so for me, I certainly wish I would have done it earlier, but then I would have missed out on the life experiences that I did have. Mm-hmm. And I know people that have transitioned at 16 that feel like, I wish I wouldn't have waited so long. Mm-hmm. So I think everybody has a sense of, this was hard and it's a journey and it's difficult and there are aspects that we need to wrestle with. And when we get it, we know it's right. But sometimes it takes some time to get there.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would like our audience to know that you haven't said yet?
If I had to leave anything, especially like to the allies, it can be very scary and nerve-wracking being a transgender person. And if someone that you love and care about is going through that journey, be their voice if you can. Because sometimes it can be too scary to say, actually, these are my pronouns. Actually, I want to be called this, And so obviously with the person that you love and their permission, so that you don't out them, if you have their permission, just help. Just be like, actually, these are their pronouns. Or, hey, by the way, you misgendered them. If you love someone that is going through the transgender journey, help them out. Be their voice if they don't have one.
I think that's excellent advice.
Thank you. Well, we're grateful that you came and joined us, and we're grateful to you in our audience for coming back week after week. We try to always bring you something, little dose of positivity to help you be that loving person towards the person in your life that needs it most.
And if there's anything you'd like to do to help us with this podcast, we'd like to ask you to share this with one other person. The more we get the word out, the more we are out there fulfilling our objective of trying to keep families together. And we're saving lives one podcast at a time.
And with that,
We'll see you Monday.